Okay, we're live. And we are once again checking in with the Business Not As Usual podcast, now available in video. Live
in
and direct,
video.
in color.
I gotta did my hair now. This is the problem, Vince.
No,
This is the
you don't.
This is the problem with these fandangled new things. I'm not gonna do my hair, makeup.
Okay. So
what's going on?
What is going on in this new reality in which we find ourselves?
As you can tell, I'm getting squirrely. I think we've been house ridden for like a month. Oh, except for this guy, he's drinking look at him. He's drinking his Starbucks.
Listen,
you actually found one that was open.
Listen, the one by me has a drive-through.
Does it? See, in Toronto, they don't have any. In Toronto,
so it's only. But this is the first Starbucks I've had in a month.
A month? Ooh.
Yeah. This episode brought to you by Starbucks.
By Starbucks.
Where I was normally doing 2 or 3 a day. So
yeah,
first one in a month. So I had a break in my calendar, and I thought, while I have this time, go grab a coffee.
Don't hesitate. Don't leave, because you never know what they're going to shut down next.
You got it.
And we'll be at home, which is a good topic for today.
It is. Yes.
Remote working. It is like the number one topic, I think, if you go on LinkedIn. Everyone's talking about how to work remotely.
Well, and what I've found, and I find this hilarious, is that all of a sudden there are a ton of remote working speakers and writers and experts. And to me, in a month. And to me, the people that did it before, those are the people you want to talk to.
Those are the experts.
I know a friend of mine. I actually had her on my web show last night. She did a presentation a year ago or 2 years ago on how to manage a team remotely, because she was working with a team in India that was offsite. And so how do you engage with them remotely? That's a person I would go to. Right.
Absolutely.
Right. But let's acknowledge it is a little different when you have to be remote and still get work done. So that's what I think you wanted to talk about today, which is how can you continue to do the things that you need to do and build the infrastructure that allows you to be successful in a remote world.
Yes. And I mean, usually what you read is you should get a remote working thing like Zoom or Teams or GoToMeetings. Sorry, it escaped me. And not only are all these remote experts coming up, but there's this influx of here's these new remote tools, especially all these planners. They're coming across my stream here's remote planning and stuff like that. So yes, those tools are out there. We're not going to talk about them. You can go look at them, because that's, installing Zoom or using StreamYard or getting those, or doing GoToMeetings. You can go get those. You can just download those. You can get Teams. You can get a personal version of Teams. But I think what's important is how you work from home. Right. And so actually let's tackle something that you did the other day.
Yeah.
You facilitated online, which is, so first let's start with a meeting.
Yeah.
When you would go to a meeting, you would get there and then people would chit chat, and then you would just start talking. You would let's get into the meeting. And people started running the online meeting like that, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So as a facilitator, as the person leading the meeting, imagine people, they're not really sure what's going on. Even though I can see you, you're not really sure what's going on, especially on Teams. You don't actually have the tiling. Right. So you have to be much more, descriptive and for lack of a better word, forceful. That's not really the word I'm looking for, but you have to be more assertive. Your
tactics are going to change.
Yeah. When you're starting a meeting, you need to acknowledge everyone who's there. Like Johnny is here and Vince is here, and then you have to start that. And then now we're going to do this, and now we're going to do this, because it's the reading of people online. We're not very good at that. We're going to get better at it, but we're not really good at that. But the thing you had to do was much harder, and I'll let you talk about it. Facilitating
a workshop.
We could say words like requirements, but gathering stuff out of people's heads that usually is done in live.
Yeah.
Right now, probably you've done it live. That's probably your forte, but walk through how that works. Walk through how you use the tools and how you kind of manage the room in that way.
Yeah. So this is where, let's take a step even further back. I was not expecting to be facilitating a full day of meetings on the day that I did it. Typically, because facilitation is exhausting. And so, if I had my way, I would have said to the people that actually, for whatever reason, made the plan and then downloaded it to me, it's ridiculous to do four 90-minute sessions in one day. So let's just put that out there. What you don't see, and I would do the same thing whether I was in person or remote. You need to plan out what you're going to do. And I use the analogy of like a football coach. I had to script the first 20 plays of my workshop, so that I knew going in what were the things that I was going to say and do, and how I was going to engage people, and what were the first couple of questions that I was going to ask. But then you need to be able to ad lib and improvise. But I wanted to have that first piece scripted. So I was up probably till about 11 the night before, just sort of thinking through, okay, what order should I do things in, and introduce new things to, and introduce the key stakeholders, and then introduce all this stuff. And then playing it in my head, so that, in my head, so that I could, okay, does this work? Should I swap things around? So I get in, and now the feedback, I don't know if it's gotten to you yet, Mike. The feedback was you made it flow and you made it seem seamless, but there's work that goes into that. The biggest hurdle I had, and this is the big difference between live and virtual and remote. I needed a way of isolating the key quote voting or decision-making stakeholders from everybody else.
The core team versus the kind of the people that would be support.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And so in a live environment, I've had a lot of success with borrowing, again, from sports, from soccer. When you agree with something, you show a green card. When you disagree, you show a red card. And then it's a discussion. It's a visual signal that, yes, we're in agreement. No, we're not. Now, I had to think through, how do I get that done in a remote thing? So what I did was, at the beginning of the meeting, I introduced the key business stakeholders, and I asked that they stay off of mute. Normally, when you're in a meeting, if you're not saying anything, you should be on mute. But I asked that they be off mute all the time so that we could have a conversation. I also asked if they could keep their cameras on, so that when they are speaking, you can actually look at them and not just look at a screen. So that to me was key. I then asked everybody else, and there were about 20, 25 people in this meeting, which is a big group. I asked them to stay on mute, and if they had something to say, to just put a note in the chat, like, "Hey, I have a question. Hey, I want to add something," whatever. And I said, "We'll get to you in order, but I need a way of managing the conversation so that it doesn't devolve into just everybody talking over everybody else, right? Because at the end of the day, what I was trying to do was gather business requirements, but high level capabilities from key stakeholders, and I needed to hear from them, and I didn't need the waters muddied by everybody else. So that worked very, very well. The people that were in the sessions came to me afterwards and like, we've never had that level of facilitation. Like, I wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary, but I just putting in a little bit of thought. The big challenge was managing the room, as it is in all facilitations. That is the biggest objective, is managing the room.
Yeah. I found another thing that works in, I've been in some leadership meetings, lots of people with lots of
highfalutin ideas.
I won't say highfalutin. I say, let me go strong personalities.
Okay.
And I think one of the issues, regardless of strong personality or not, you don't have that clue of, especially, so one of the issues that we're in now is, unlike you and I who can see each other, when you have like 30 people on a Zoom, Teams, whatever, and everyone's at home, so it's a little bit different. The quality of video starts to deteriorate, and it starts to deteriorate also the audio. So we tell everyone to don't go on camera, and maybe unless you're speaking. But so now you don't know when there's a lot of talking over each other. So what we've actually incorporated is, if you have something to say, you put it in the chat, and then we'll go through them one at a time. And if we need to call on you, like you wrote something and you're like, either don't know what you mean or can you elaborate, then they come off of mute. I mean, this is a little bit different than working remote pre-COVID, because the quality was always there, because everyone was like, they didn't have the deterioration of kind of the technology as we're having now. But so these are the things that you have to incorporate. You just can't think that you're going to be off site and then run the meeting the same way. So it is using the tools like as you did, or put it in the chat, or incorporating some sort of survey. Okay, we've talked about this a whole bunch of times. Now we just need to vote, some sort of voting mechanism. Or I know on Zoom they have you put up your hand. You can do a little put up your hand thing. So those are all the things you have to use the tools. I know we didn't say which tools, but whatever tool you're using, you need to use it, because that's why they're there. They built them because it's not like being face to face.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when I was first, like I said, I found out the day before that I was leading these conversations. My first thought was, how am I going to get agreement from people? And so I reached out to a friend of mine, Jen, who is an expert in analysis by gamification. And so I just wanted to bounce some ideas off of her as it relates to, how do I get alignment from a group in a way that, like, what's a tool that I might use for like voting, or getting people aligned and on board, and just not being disruptive. Like, so that was one way, and ultimately I didn't use a tool that she recommended because I really wanted to keep it simple. But it was still putting in that thought of like, how do I overcome the challenges that distance brings? Because it's still like, we still got a very positive result from the meetings, just not in person.
Right.
But
you have to do, obviously there's things you need to do completely different.
Yes.
So how do you handle, and you probably didn't get to it, or maybe you've done it other places. I'm sure you've written on a board, or you've done some whiteboarding. How do you do stuff like that? Or you haven't done it yet?
So I haven't done it in the COVID context.
Yeah.
But, I always keep, so I'll either use a board that's available through whatever tool.
Right.
Like, Teams has a whiteboard, GoToMeeting has a board, but I think it's like a whiteboard. Or if I need to, I have a whiteboard right over my shoulder. So if I need to pull that down, I'm not going to, because I've got some drawings that my daughter did for me. But like, if I need to, I can take the board down and then show it.
Right.
Like I haven't had to do that yet, but that's like, again, you can bring the offline world online with you, using some of the same tools.
Right.
If I needed to go, like, let's say I needed to go to a whiteboard and draw, well, then I would just reposition my laptop to have the camera focus on me while I was doing whatever I needed to do. Right. So it's still,
which I think will be the evolution. I think.
Yeah.
I think at some point we're all going to invest in like the $30 Logitech cameras, and then maybe just have like the paper whiteboard or like an easel with like, these are the things that you have to start thinking about, or companies have to start thinking about, having people buy these things and then use them like that. So it's not right now we're sitting at our computer and it's like all day, but eventually people are gonna be like, oh, if I just had a camera and then I had easel with the 3M paper, I could run through and everybody could be watching me. So that, like, as we continue to stay home, and the bulk of us, these are the things that are going to start to happen.
Well, and you have to remember, like, I've been sort of doing this for a few years. Right. So the shock of having to be home and transitioning to being effective wasn't as great as someone who is not, who for years has been, butts in seats. Right. So if you're used to, I can only facilitate in person, right, then you aren't going to be as adaptable, and it's going to take you longer to figure out how to do it. Yeah. What this did, and we've talked about this before, but what this did is it forced you to learn. It forced you to evolve. Yeah. This is like an X-Men. Like, we were forced to mutate. Yes. Because we didn't have a choice. Right. Right. And so, people that say, well, I can't run a process workshop remotely. Yes, you can. I can't do a requirements workshop remotely. Yes, you can. I can't do a strategy session remotely. Yes, you can. Like, you can do all of it. Right? You can. And if anybody thinks that magically in July we're all going to head back to our offices and be like, well, that was a nice couple of months doing it that way. Now we're going to go back to the way we're going to get okay, so in July, I know we're going back. Can I start booking my meeting rooms now? That ain't going to happen. Because companies are realizing that production is almost the same, or maybe a little bit less, but they're spending way less money on real estate. So your 30 floors in a building are going to be collapsed to 5. Yeah. And so there'll be hoteling stations. And there probably won't be 900 meeting rooms anymore. So you're going to have to, if you don't think you can, you better figure out how. Because we're not going back to before March. No. The world of work and the world has fundamentally changed. Yep. So if you haven't already, figure out how to do what you did in this new world. Yeah. And absolutely. And I still have yet to see, from a work perspective, anything that can't be done remotely. What you can't do, I would say, in corporations. Maybe we'll do in corporation. We'll do a small business transformation COVID thing. Like, you can't cut hair. My wife did it. You guys my wife did it. But it's serviceable. Okay, I'm gonna tell her. I give her a 6 out of 10. From a corporation standpoint, you should be able to do everything. Yes. We've proven in a month, you could do it. Yes. Now you're a restaurant, you cut hair. Different. It's a problem. Different. You give massages, big problems. Different. You got problems. Absolutely. But if you're a bank, large insurance company, government, sorry, we can all work at home. Right. And where I wanted to go with this is, there is one key change that I found, and that is around relationship building. Right. And so, keeping up with colleagues, keeping up with peers, meeting new peers and new folks to the organization, and learning about what different areas do. That has changed slightly, but it's still possible, right? Like I can't say, hey Mike, let's go for coffee.
Right.
I can't do that.
I was going to bring that up.
Right.
So let's start with because getting new relationships is something different. But let's talk about. Hey, you around? Yes. Want to go down to Starbucks? And then we would go. And I would do that with you. I would do it with my I would do with everyone. You around? So how have you been doing that? Like with the virtual do you have virtual coffees? Do you do stuff like that?
Yeah. So I've actually been doing that a lot. So I've started. So you probably know I've started a web show where I'm live streaming, and I call it Analysts After Work.
Right.
And the idea was based off of an idea I had years ago that I think that you were involved with, that I called Pizza and Process.
Yeah.
And so we went for lunch, we ate pizza, and we talked about business process. It was it was a total proof of concept. It never went anywhere. But out of that was born this idea of Analysts After Work. And so the idea is me and a couple friends get together after work virtually and have drinks and talk.
Right.
And we just talk. Like, it's the stuff you would talk about after work.
Right.
Right. So I've been doing that. I just last night, as of this recording, last night was episode 4. Now on YouTube, please subscribe. But in addition to that, for my sort of day gig, more business oriented, I have been scheduling coffees with colleagues just to chat.
Right.
And it's, you invariably talk about business a little bit, but it's more just maintaining that human connection and just chatting. Like, yesterday I had talked to a colleague, and we talked about basketball for 20 of the 30 minutes that we talked
right
about. You know what I mean? Just because that was what we talked about before.
Right.
So it shouldn't change.
Mm-hmm.
I have it in mind to do that a lot more often, because
no,
go ahead.
I think it's important because you don't maybe, even though we didn't go for coffee, I would walk by, I would see you, we'd chit chat for a bit, we see you in the elevator, but you don't have those like crossing in the hallway moments where you tell a joke. And so I think it and you would make let's go for coffee, let's go for coffee. And a lot of the let's go for coffee was because you were in the elevator and like, hey, I haven't seen you, we should go for coffee.
Yes.
So you then that triggers you to just send out an appointment, right?
Right.
But now you got to purposefully go, okay. And because one of the things that I found, and a lot of people have been talking about it, is our days are substantially longer. So two things. Our days are substantially longer, and people feel that because they're at home, they should always be available.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's 8 o'clock at night, no, you don't. You shouldn't feel because you've worked at home all day that you have to get that email. Did you get it before? Did you work enough? Yes. So meetings at like 9 o'clock at night? No. Just because we're at home doesn't mean you get to have meetings at 9 o'clock at night. And
as a normal thing, like
if you're launching like the biggest product you ever did, you should probably be on the call. But
that's what I'm saying.
You know, a day where it's just a normal work day, like the days are being extended and they're filled with all these meetings, but none of those meetings are shoot the shit meetings, like coffee meetings. So you need to purposely go, take some time out and go, who haven't I talked to in a while? Like look down your chat list and go, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm just going to book some coffee with them.
Yeah.
It's super important because you'll just fill up your time with 9,000 meetings because everyone's at home. So you should be available. And but you're not getting to have those relationship conversations.
Yeah. And that I'll be honest, man, those are the things that I think I miss the most.
Yeah.
Like those spontaneous, like you run into somebody on the way down to go, grab lunch, and it's like, hey, what's up? What are you doing now? Well, I was gonna just go eat at my desk, but you want to just grab lunch? Yeah, let's do that. So, that was why, when I had this chance now, I ran out for a coffee because like I've got a bit of time.
Right.
Let me go do it. Like, that spontaneous stuff is what I miss. And so, and by the way, as an introvert, that should astound you. But I still
agreed. As a fellow introvert.
Yeah. But I still like, it's the people, there are people that you deal with at work because you have to. And then there's people like you, Mike, that I actually enjoy chatting with. And like,
fantastic.
It always breaks my heart a little when I would drop by and say, hey, Mike, you want to go for a coffee? I can't, man. I can't. I'm too busy. Oh, okay.
Too busy.
And then you walk away crying. Like,
too busy.
But you know what I mean? Like that, those are the people like that. The dude that and you probably know who I'm talking about. Like, this is a dude who runs our fantasy football league and
then mocks you when you win.
And then mocks me when I finish dead last. And like a year and a half later, like, dude, you missed your chance. But like, during football season, it's like you see him coming up, and if he's got a big smile on his face,
you're doomed.
You know that he's trying to pull. And so, no, it's true. Awesome. So you would go, like, there were instances where I'd go up to, hey, dude, we got to talk about this project. We need to align. Because I want to make sure that my stuff isn't overlapping on your stuff. And he's like, yeah, okay.
Did he talk smack about your team?
No, and then you do 2 minutes, you figure out the problem, and he's like, okay, now to important stuff. Do you want to trade Patrick Mahomes?
Let me do that. That's a great call.
So, but it's like, that's the kind of stuff that I miss.
That's the stuff I think everybody's starting to miss now after being a month.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's is coaching.
Yes.
And so there's two types of coaching. So if you have one of the harder ones is like if you have a contact center. So one of the best ways to manage a contact center is to have these coaching sessions, but when you're on the floor, like you're walking around, you hear a call. It maybe either went the way it should have or it didn't. And then you could have that immediate, that was a good call. Here's why it was good. Da, 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 da. You don't have that. Those frontline managers don't have that. So they have to, unfortunately, they either have to listen to more calls and then catch them. But they have to also be, just like the coffees, purposeful, because they don't just get to walk around and then talk to you. Hey, Vince, that was a great call. They got to purposely put time in their calendar to talk to their team. And on a project team, in the midst of all this craziness, you still have to keep track of what's going on. And then, again, purposefully have these meetings to be able to coach.
Right. But I would argue that should be what they were doing all along.
I think
it's different now.
It's different, and I think before it was more impromptu because they just happened to be there. Just like the coffee, they happened to be there. Right. They caught a good or bad call. Now they got to think about, I haven't walked the floor, so now what? How am I going to coach my junior member of the team?
So yeah, and
so it is a bit different.
It's different, but I think philosophically, again, I think we've stumbled on another thing we might not agree on. I am not a fan of management by walking around.
Right.
Like, to me, you take data in on performance, and I know that data can be collected, and I don't need to listen to 1,000 calls to determine which of my staff are good and which ones aren't.
Right.
And you're right. I mean, you can walk around and catch, but to me, like you almost, if you do that, you almost become like a figurehead where it's like, oh, I better do what I need to because here comes Mike.
Right.
And then once he's gone, I can do whatever I want again. So like, it's just, and that's a philosophical difference, but I'm not saying that it doesn't, that doesn't help them. But again, I think that even that comes back to that human connection of like, hey man, I just happened to be walking by and that was an amazing call. Like, kudos, or, you know, high five, or like whatever. That's not coaching. That's just like, I just happen to be here.
Right.
Great job. You know, I think, and we talked about this in the last episode. I think if you don't trust the people that you hire to do a good job, you walking around isn't going to make them do a good job. Right?
True that. So. True that. Good point, Vince.
Thank you.
Counterpoint.
Hey, you know what? That's what this is all about.
Because, you know, it's business not as usual.
It's business not as usual. Like, and you know what? And I think it's good because as much as we do agree on things, we do have different takes. And I think that's a good thing. And, you know, going back as far as the first podcast that we did, where like there was stuff we disagreed on.
Yes.
But what I think we're really good at is being able to see the other's perspective and take it in. And you know, you can get to a point where it's agree to disagree. This is just gush fest now. But like you know what I mean? Like, it's just sure. We don't need to agree, and you're still awesome.
Yeah. So
la, la, la.
Of all the stuff you've used,
yes.
If you were gonna in parting, if you were gonna say, what's the best software, the easiest one you've used to, if someone's like, I don't got time to research 18 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just start. I know. My martial arts school is using Zoom. I know Zoom doesn't like it. Zoom's like, we didn't build it for the fitness industry. And I'm like, why do you care?
Yeah,
you're getting a revenue stream that you never even thought of.
Mm-hmm.
So Zoom seems to be an easy one. We use Teams. I think that's a pretty good one.
Yeah,
but in our previous podcast, we used GoToMeetings. I thought that was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are, I think those, if you stick with those, I think you'd be good.
They're all good, man. Like the tool is secondary.
I'm just saying, if someone's like, I got to get online and I'm not going to go look, which one should I use?
Yeah, I mean, Zoom has, I think, 20x'd their subscriber base since this broke down. So since this broke out. So like, you know, Zoom is the leader, and people are talking about Zoom becoming the next Verb, like similar to Google, right? Like, hey, let's Zoom.
Let's Zoom. Yeah.
You know, so Zoom's got the momentum. Cool. But if you use GoToMeeting, if you use Zoom, if you use Google Hangouts, if you use like, they're all viable. They're all the house bar. Well, yeah.
Chips like Block is a great game.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
The tools work, right? It's going to come down to features. So I would say, you know, just based on the market, start with Zoom. And if it doesn't work for you, then you may want to look at something else. But chances are you're already, like, if you've signed up for a webinar in the last year, you've used one of these tools.
Yes.
Right?
And yes, and you should have at least enough to get by a half hour.
Yeah.
Like,
so I mean, I'm not going to, that's not,
click on a bunch of buttons to get you through a half hour. So it's only when you start to get fancy, like we were talking about at the beginning.
And that's the thing. Like, you know, GoToMeeting, we originally used it for a previous podcast because it gave video.
Yes.
And they removed that feature. And so I don't know why,
Who goes backwards?
Well, so you have to also remember GoToMeeting is part of a broader portfolio.
Oh, yeah.
So there's GoToWebinar, there's there's another GoTo. And it's like, well, if you want to record,
yes,
you need to use GoToWebinar, and that's a separate fee. And like, okay, I don't want to do that. That's the truth.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to endorse a tool, but I would say just based on the market today, start with Zoom.
Yeah, I would say
start with what you're familiar with.
Yeah. I think if you've never done anything and you need to and you thought we were going to go a month and then be back to normal and you need to do something, I think if you Zoom is easy enough that if you press a bunch of buttons, you'll get up and running. So I would start with that. But again, it's you have to take the time to intelligently use it, and intelligently know what to do when you get on there and what you're going to do with it. That's what's important.
Right.
That's where you should be spending your time.
And I just want to add, and we can close with this. I had a chat with Lori Silverman, who was on the show a couple episodes ago, and she coined a term, or she used it. I don't know. I'm not going to say she coined it, but she used a term I hadn't heard before, which was we keep talking about the new normal, and the truth is this is not normal. Like what we're doing now is not normal,
right?
But she's talking about what's the next normal. And that was, to me, that better captures what is to come. Because out of this sort of transition period, there will be a next normal. And I think it's going to look dramatically different than a pre-March.
Yeah, when we get out of this, like this is an artificial dive into, like it's a lot of digital all at once.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the new normal. What we need to take into consideration is when we get to go back out and freely move around, and we can go back to work and do all the 100 things that we used to do. It's how do you now meld the two worlds so that they interact with each other and they augment each other, because it's not going to be the old way, but it's not going to be where we are now. Like this is all in, and people are going to get out. They're going to be distracted by things, and we're going to start going to restaurants. And so it's how do you mix where we are now with bringing the old world way up,
right,
and augmenting those two experiences.
But then also think about the positive there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you're not thinking of the positive, but you and I had been talking about possibly talking about hiring in this podcast. You're no longer limited by geography of who you can hire.
Absolutely.
And so I don't care. Like if I had to hire some assassin business analysts, I know some amazing ones in the UK, in the East Coast of Canada, in the West Coast of Canada. So if the requirement of you need to show up for work every day in Toronto is removed, then you can really build a strong team.
Yeah, your possibilities have gone like haywire because I can't come to Toronto at 2:00. Well, I guess you don't get the interview.
Yeah.
That is completely over.
Which is going to make all the work that I've done over the last few years traveling around and meeting people and getting to know these assassins, it's going to make me as a connector that much more quote important,
right? Because
I especially for the type of work that I do, I may become a go-to for, hey, I need the best process analyst,
right?
And I know people. There's this dude in Spain that you can hire, right. Like, and as long as you can account for the time difference, you're good.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's a good place to end.
And where can they find you in this great world of ours?
Me?
Yes.
Me. As always, vincentmirabelli.com. And you, sir?
I'm at michaelmartino.ca or at _Michael Martino on the gram.
Okay. This has been the Business Not As Usual podcast with Vince and Mike. We'll see you in the next one.
See you later.